SiriusXM keeps truck drivers informed and entertained with coast-to-coast coverage across the U.S. and Canada. Listen to what you love from anywhere on the road with 24/7 ad-free music plus sports, news, talk, and comedy. Hear your favorites on every haul for just $6.06 a month. Sign up at SiriusXMFleet.com. Welcome to The Long Haul, the podcast dedicated to empowering small carriers and owner-operators to drive their business forward. I'm your host, Adam Wingfield, bringing you insights from industry leaders, real-world success stories, and strategies to help you navigate the road to profitability. Whether you're just getting started or looking to take your fleet to the next level, this is the show where trucking meets opportunity. So buckle up, it's time to go the distance. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of The Long Haul. And today I am really excited because we get to talk about a smaller niche, no pun intended, but we're talking about a smaller part of the market that really you don't hear much about, but I really want to dig into it. Box trucks, cargo vans, sprinters. Most folks overlook them, but today's guest sees them as the future of freight. Mike Ernst is the president of Expedite All and a 25-year freight veteran who's held executive roles at Yellow, YRC Freight, Roadway, and now he's leading the charge in small truckload known as STL. And he's here to explain why that shift matters big time for small carriers. If you ever wonder how to win with smaller equipment, serve high-value customers, value outstanding, and stand out in a freight market that's always changing, this episode is your roadmap. I'm super excited to join and really have this conversation with Mike today. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Adam, thank you very much. And thank you for having us today. We're looking forward to the conversation as well.
Man, I'm excited about this, man, because there's some smaller operators out there that operate smaller equipment that feel like they get left out, man. There's a lot of podcasters out there that all we talk about is the big trucks, the 18-wheelers, and the heavy stuff. But not Mike. Nah, we've carved that niche out. And tell us a little bit about your journey, man. You come from the yellow side of it. You spent decades in LTL, traditional freight, but now you're leading the charge in small truckload. What drew you to small truckload and why now? Why now?
Yeah, really. I mean, Adam, if we go back, I started my career back in 2001 with Roadway Express. You probably know the history of Yellow buying Roadway. We transformed names a few times. At the end, it was Yellow Freight. But really, it was an unfortunate way I made it to where I with Expedite All. You're familiar with the unfortunate, untimely demise of Yellow. A lot of great people, 30,000 employees. Unfortunately, everybody had to look for a new role. So as anybody would, had a great career, loved all the relationships, really enjoyed the organization. But when I started looking for my next career, post Yellow, it was really about what is unique, what caught my interest, what was something different. And honestly, Adam, could be transparent. One of the things that made my final decision is Expedite All is a very faith-based organization. So I thought that was very unique. It spoke to me personally, and had a lot of fun over the last almost 2 years now, working with the organization and helping build things out.
I love that. A lot of folks still hear Expedite and they think local or short runs. What's the biggest misconception about STL that you wish more carriers understood?
Yeah, probably the biggest misconception is what you just said. Most people think of that final mile or that hot shot, that expedited delivery over a short number of miles. But honestly, Adam, our average length of haul is over 660 miles. So a lot of what we do is the longer haul transits. We have a number of things that go coast to coast. We do short haul as well. But really, STL is about right sizing the shipment size to the proper vehicle. There's a number of different applications that we can get into, but really that's what it is. And phrase small truckload, because it's a dedicated vehicle, it's a dedicated use for a cradle to grave, point to point, no touch solution to help you do anything from the true word expedite, fastest ground solution, or when you think about some of the industries that we handle freight for, automotive and high value, easily damageable freight. It's a changing market that people are looking for a solution. Again, that you can find a more economical solution to get a dedicated unit without having to buy a full truckload. And it's that space in between LTL where you really don't want the slower service or the multiple handlings where things can go wrong. So we're having a lot of fun in this space, Adam.
Well, let's break it down then. How do you define small truckload? What types of freight are you talking about? How does it deliver? How does it differentiate from exactly what you talked about? You said from that hot shot or that traditional LTL. There got to be a difference.
Yeah, big difference. So great question. So the definition of STL is small truckload. Again, it's going to be anything from an envelope that you want a dedicated solution to go directly or up to 14 pallets. So mostly the things we handle are going to be 1 to 14 pallets. There's three different vehicle types. As you know, you've got the sprinter vans or the cargo vans. They'll all hold up to 3, maybe 4 pallets. All of ours will hold a minimum of 3 pallets, but they'll hold about 3,000 pounds worth of cargo weight. You've got the box trucks, and I do like to differentiate what's a box truck versus what's a straight truck. Your box trucks are going to hold up to 6 pallets worth of cargo and about 4,000 pounds. Now, box trucks are non-dock high. You can't drive a forklift into them. They do have the ramps and risers to get the rear end dock high so that you can have a forklift set the freight on, but you can't drive into them. And then you have the straight truck that'll handle 14 pallets up to about 9 or 10,000 pounds. Again, it's like any other commercial vehicle that 53 footer, an LTL pup. They'll back up to the dock. They've got lift gates. You can drive the forklift on, and again, they'll hold up to 14 pallets and about 10,000 pounds worth of cargo weight.
So what types of customers or industries are really driving the shift towards STL? Is it e-commerce, automotive, retail? Is it something new? What's really driving that sector?
It's all above, Adam. It's really a market shift. So you think
Mhm.
about the world we live in today. One, you've got the Amazon effect where everybody wants everything immediately, right? So people are looking for a fast solution than what some of the other modes can offer. So that's one possibility. The other thing is, suppliers, distributors are getting closer to their end user for shorter lead times. That way, again, their order fulfillment, smaller quantities can get delivered quicker. And then last but not least, that leaner inventory because of the turnover. It
Mhm.
reduces waste by ordering fewer pallets worth of product. You can consume it quicker. You don't have to worry about, 30, 60, 90 days worth of product sitting on the shelf, and all of a sudden it becomes obsolete. And what do you do with it? Either liquidate it, have a fire sale to try to recoup some of your cost, or you eat it.
Sure.
So a lot of those examples are what's changing in the market, and we're seeing some really great opportunities out there for people to take advantage of this space versus conventional modes like railroad, full truckload, LTL, and things like that.
So, Mike, from your perspective, is STL a trend, or are we looking at a permanent shift in how shippers really want their freight moved? Is this something that you foresee is going to be the next three-letter acronym?
I do. We see probably about a 3 to 4 X growth over the next 2 to 3 years. When you think about the space, again, what's changing in our market with, people's desire to have things quicker, make sure you don't reduce the waste, be able to really take advantage of your CapEx and spend it where you want to. The market's shifting towards STL. The other modes will never go away, Adam. You've
Mhm.
still got, necessity for full truckload. LTL still makes sense for certain markets or certain customers, even intermodal. It's obviously one of the slower modes, but again, from an economic standpoint, for large orders, it makes sense. Really, we're seeing the market shift in a number of different ways, whether it be automotive, manufacturing, again, retailers, suppliers, distributors. They're all looking at how can I streamline that supply chain, right? How can I make my dollar more effective, both for what's on the floor and how do I pay to get it from point A to point B and satisfy my customers. Um, but we see explosive growth happening based on what the data leads us to over the next 2 to 4 years. And I don't think it's going to change. If you look at the European market 10 years ago, they had already started to do this.
Right.
If you've ever flown over to somewhere in Europe, you don't see a whole lot of 53 footers. People are reducing those lead times, ordering the smaller quantities, and they started doing it about 10 years ago. We think the US market is prime right now because, again, of the three things we talked about earlier, that it's shifting drastically as well.
That's interesting. And when I think about it, when we want to talk about it from an owner operator perspective and what it means for an owner operator, if I'm an owner operator and I got a cargo van or I'm running box trucks, what does STL mean for me in real terms? Whether that be rate, lanes, consistency, what does that mean for me? Just like you said, 3, 4 years down the road.
I think they're going to continue to see volume and continue to be able to remain loaded even more than they do today. We're seeing a lot of owner operators actually increase into smaller fleets. And that's really how our model is built, Adam. We partner with agents, we partner with small fleets, and we've been working on the network for probably about the last 16 years and really went to market post COVID because it's also a scary environment. You think about when
Mhm.
COVID hit, a lot of theft, a lot of fraud, a lot of back solicitation, theft of product, theft of customers. You know, we had a consulting arm of the business that would help owner operators really manage everything back office. But that was really the conception of Expedite All and going to market post COVID because there wasn't a real safe way to vet these type of providers in many cases. So we were able to go and partner with 3PLs, brokers, freight forwarders to say, hey, we have a large quantity of vehicles that we can create a safe environment to offer this capacity versus some of the other methods you may be able to find. I'm either partnering with a lot of small ones yourself and maybe being out of position to handle the freight your customers needed, or going to load boards where you have to spend a lot of time making sure you've got a legit provider that's not going to run off
Sure.
with your freight or run off with your customer. But we're seeing those agent models really grow into smaller fleets through the partnerships that we have to keep them loaded. And you know we don't hear any complaints, I guess, is the best way to describe it. They seem pretty happy with the partnership and the relationship.
So let's talk about Expedite All. You have you guys have built a massive network, and it's not asset based, but you've been able to build this amazing network of capacity of small operational equipment, box trucks, sprinters. The nine. Give us just if you put for a minute, tell the audience what is Expedite All. Give us some insight as to what it is.
Sure. Thank you for that, Adam. So, Expedite All, what we've coined ourselves as the largest provider of small vehicle solutions in North America. As you said, we have over 10,000 vehicles. I think the number's at 10,620 as of this morning. But really, it's through a consulting arm that we opened up helping small owner operators or small fleets manage everything back office. What makes us unique is we've also coined the phrase we only work within what's called our closed loop network of drivers. So what does that mean, or what's the definition? So through those ships, doing all the hiring, the training, the vetting, the onboarding, the safety and regulatory compliance standards, making sure that they're up, you know, they're complying with what they need to, the insurance, all of that good stuff. Through that consultant arm, we really went to market to say, hey, we can offer up this relationship because we only work with freight forwarders, brokers, 3PLs. We can offer up a safe solution, on demand capacity with a tech stack that we created on our own to give you full GPS visibility throughout the life cycle of your move. And we can offer that partnership up. It does two things. Again, one, it speeds up the process because they have on demand capacity through our system to find a vehicle and book it in under 90 seconds. The reliability that you know who you're working with because we
Yeah.
don't go outside that network. If we don't know them, if we haven't worked with them, if they're not complying with the standards, we don't offer up to our partners. And then last but not least, it gives you time back in your day from a vetting perspective and all the different things you'd have to do if you went outside. So I don't know if I answered your question there, but kind of what Expedite All is. We do everything North American. We can do cross border Canada. We can do cross border Mexico. We can do intra Mexico and obviously the lower 48. But every one of these vehicles, again, gives you on demand capacity. You've got an origin destination pairing. You plug it in, the system tells you whether we have a vehicle that can make that pickup and delivery requirement. If you book it, that vehicle is an exclusive use vehicle from origin to destination. It's a no touch solution, and it's the fastest ground solution you can provide door to door service with. But
Awesome.
that's how we've gone to market, and we're having a lot of fun. I mean, as an organization, we do about 2,000 shipments a day, and again, we see this growing 3 to 4 times over the next 2 to 3, maybe 4 years, worst case scenario.
So that's a really, really interesting dynamic in terms of how you guys went to market and growth. And from a shipper side, the fact that you guys are moving 2,000 a day says a lot. But I want to look at it from an owner operator perspective. And if I've got a hot shot, I mean, or a box truck or a cargo van, a sprinter van, is there opportunities for me to put my truck on with Expedite All? Is that possible as well?
Great question, and they can. We've just got a pretty extensive vetting process to go through in order to let any new providers in. Most of what we do, Adam, is grow organically. Again, we've had these relationships through the consulting arm of the business for the last 15, 16 years. So in many cases, what happens as we have a geographic need and as we reach out to our partners and say, we're finding a need for maybe another 10 straight trucks, half a dozen box trucks, and another 15 sprinters. Who's willing to take on the vehicle? We'll help with the hiring, the training, the vetting, getting a driver in the seat. But ultimately, they're going to take on the risk of having that additional expense and all those things. Now, that being said, when we go to our partners, they also understand we have the volume. And if we're going to ask for that additional unit to be brought on, we're going to try to keep them loaded. But they aren't necessarily exclusive to us. That is one thing that I
Sure.
make clear to people. Um, our exclusivity is to them to make sure that when we hand that vehicle or pass that vehicle along as a provider for our customers' freight, it's a secure vehicle. But if I can't keep them loaded, if they're in Eufaula, Alabama, and I can't get them out of there, then
They gotta do what they gotta do.
at least, yeah, that they've got to keep the wheels moving and keep the bills paid. So we allow them to take a load if I can't keep them loaded or don't have an opportunity for them when they get to destination. But we also do have the first right of refusal when they are available that we can load them, and we try to take care of our drivers so they take care of us.
What does a strong STL carrier look like to you? What qualities or systems do you look for when you add on to your network?
Yeah, it's really about doing what we say we're going to do, right? When you're talking about the world we live in, again, it's a lot of high value stuff. It's a lot of things that can be easily damageable, or it's something that's got to move urgent. It's a just in time type of shipment. We got to pick it up as quickly as possible and deliver it. Really, the key to anybody that would want to become part of the XL network, that original onboarding process, to be one of those providers, you have to be able to do what you say you can do. When we give you the pickup and delivery requirements and you commit to them, make sure you hit them. Pick it up on time, deliver it on time. They've that they keep the GPS track and trace on through the application we have for each vehicle that's part of that network. That way, the TMS can not only read when they're available or about to come available, so that we can keep them loaded, but also so our customers have full visibility. But probably the simplest thing, Adam, is just do what we say we're going to do, right? We try to
Yeah.
take extremely good care of our customers because they're putting their customers' freight in our hands to make sure we pick up and deliver on time and take care of their business. So at the end of the day, anybody that would be interested in possibly becoming a part of the network will absolutely consider as those bringing on vehicles if they make sense for us and if they're the right type of vehicle. But the biggest thing I can tell anybody is just do what you say you're going to do and don't let the customers down because they're relying on us.
That's a hey, you know what? At the end of the day, your reputation is everything, and obviously that's the brand that you bring to the table. I want to talk a little bit about safety, and I want to talk about the blind spot with STL. And I want us to be transparent. Obviously we want to be, want to do that for the benefit of the listeners. STL is kind of a weird regulatory gray zone when it comes down to FMCSA requirements in relation to me moving a 53-foot truck and trailer. What is the risk in that, and how is Expedite All addressing it differently?
Yeah, great question. And that is, again, one of our claims to fame, I would say, because when you think about STL, as you said, they don't have to have, well, let me back up. Your straight trucks, they're going to have an MC number. They're going to have to run under the DOT hours of service. They're going to be on an ELD, all of that stuff. But when you start to think about a box truck or a sprinter van or a cargo van, again, they're all commercial vehicles. But to your point, the FMCSA doesn't regulate them like they would a 53-foot truck or even an MC'd straight truck. The risk for our partners to go outside of the network that we have is that they have to somehow figure out how they're going to vet those providers themselves from a safety perspective, from a compliance perspective. Um, Insurance, got to validate whether
Yeah.
they have insurance and things like that. That's really where Expedite All comes in and say, hey, we've already done all that. We've done our homework. We know who these vehicles are. When we tell you we have a safe, secure vehicle, you can rest at ease that the freight's going to get picked up on time, delivered on time, and it's got all the same requirements that you or your carrier would regulate any other vehicle. But again, at the end of the day, a Sprinter van, as an example, doesn't have to have a DOT number or an MC number. So
Right.
they're very difficult for people to vet in the standard marketplace without leveraging a network like we have.
So, one of the things that you mentioned a few minutes ago, you talked about having that proprietary technology, and we talked a little bit about safety protocols. Can you give us a look under the hood at what you've built to give your customers peace of mind when freight is high value or time sensitive, like you mentioned in the beginning?
Sure. Over and amongst all the other standard things you do to vet drivers, vehicles, cleanliness, presentableness, the enhanced features they may have like pallet jacks, tracking, etc. Anytime you ask somebody to turn an application on that has to be on 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days, gives us a lot of security that we know what's going on with the vehicle. And
Yeah.
transparency, we give our customers that same visibility. That's why we say we have the GPS track and trace that as soon as they book with us, you get the tracking mechanism that gives you live track and trace on that vehicle. Not only from just the point of origin at pickup, but if that truck's 30 miles away from your you're actually going to see it through our customer facing portal. You'll see that driver going to make the pickup. You'll see when they're there, and you'll see in a cradle to grave, what I kind of call the breadcrumb map that you get to watch them go
Yeah.
across. But it's updated in real time. That way, you know exactly where your freight's at. So does our operations team because they're going to keep a close eye to make sure that we're staying on track to meet what we've committed to you as a customer. But our customers get full visibility of that same track and trace for the life cycle of their shipment.
Now, do you see compliance expectations tightening for STL carriers in the near future? Just kind of just like looking at it from a more broad brush, since there is that potential of 4x, 5x, this segment to grow. Do you see any changes in the regulatory?
Regulatory changes always take place, Adam. I would speculate as the market continues to grow, the FMCSA is probably going to take a little more interest um, from a regulatory standpoint, but I don't know when that would be. I mean, they've got their hands full with a lot of other things. And
Yeah.
I think even, relatively speaking, when you're talking about full truckload, LTL, intermodal, things like that, it's a much larger piece of the pie. Now, again, we see this growing to 4x over the next 2, 3, 4 years. But as of right now, I'm not certain that they're really digging into that STL side from a regulatory standpoint. Um, but who knows what the future may hold? You never know.
Now you've got deep LTL experience. And, when you think about mode comparison, and I want to just talk about STL to LTL just for a second, just so we can help people understand a little bit better. When you look at that, when should a shipper go STL versus LTL? And what does that mean for brokers or carriers that are trying to guide whatever choice to ship on whatever mode in that design?
Yeah. Comes down to a couple things. Obviously, speed is foremost. So if you have something urgent, you need to get it picked up and delivered to destination as quickly as possible. STL is a much better solution because the way our system works is we pick it up at your warehouse, your shipping docks, and take it directly to the final destination. It's kind of
Sure.
like Monopoly. Do not pass go, right? It's going
Right,
straight
right.
there, so it's the fastest option. LTL is more of that relay race where the baton's getting handed, it's getting reloaded, it's going through relay systems. It's just a lot faster. The other piece is, when you think about the value of your freight, if it's high value, an LTL system, there's going to be a lot of handlings and a lot of touches. Not that people intend for things to go wrong, but they do. So when you're talking about high value or something that's easily damageable, things can go wrong in an LTL system when you're talking about so many touches. Uh, Also, if somebody's thinking about a lot of packaging costs in order to make it fit into the
Mhm.
LTL system, in many cases, you may spend a little bit more from a transportation perspective on that
Mhm.
individual shipment going STL because you get a dedicated unit. But when you remove that enhanced packaging that you would have to put around that material to put it in an
Protect it,
LTL,
yeah.
all of a sudden you can balance out. Now you get a faster service at an equal cost when you reduce packaging costs that you'd have to put in play to ship at LTL. So again, LTL has its space. It's very economical because you're mixing a number of different ship. But if you're looking fast, if you're looking for no touch, if you've got something high value, easily damageable, STL is probably your better fit.
All right, being that's considered, what's one thing that STL does better than traditional LTL? And what's one thing that STL still needs to catch up on?
So probably the easiest explanation is again just that direct door-to-door service. We're much, much faster than LTL. I don't mean by hours, I mean in many cases by days. So that's probably the easiest answer to your question as far as what does STL do better. As far as where STO has to catch up, I'm not certain there's a comparison there.
Yeah,
Again, they're different modes, right? It's
yeah.
kind of like saying what's difference in FTL versus LTL. They're two different animals. I think
Mhm.
STL is the same way. I don't think that there's really anything that needs to be caught up. It's just a different mode. It's a different model based on what you may need or what your customers may need.
So, and when you think about the trends in the industry, and that's a great, great point. When I look at the trends in the industry, what are you seeing on the floor at events? You know, you've been in the F3s, the broker carrier summits that small carriers need to pay attention to, specifically based on what you're starting to see.
Honestly, they just have to ask the questions of their customers. We find just about any partner that we join calls with them and their customers have that type of freight. They're just not sure how to solve the problem, right? How to
Mhm.
find a provider that can handle it the way they want to in that STL world. So we actually spend a lot of time with our partners, Adam, actually teaching their sales teams how to have discussions with their customers, how to evaluate the freight characteristics that their customers have to see which one's a better fit, and then help coach through how to leverage Expedite All's network as a one-stop shop for over 10,000 vehicles. Because again, there's no competitor like us out there with that many vehicles. So a lot of it's just opening people's eyes about asking, looking for those type of shipments, and how to find that right fit that makes more sense than one of the others. Does that make sense?
It does, and you've got a packed calendar through 2025. Yeah, I actually saw your calendar and events that you're actually attending through that. Man, what's the vibe at these shows? Are we finally starting to see small truckload being taken seriously by the big players? Is that that's the vibe? What's going on with that?
There's a lot of excitement out there, and I think people are very happy to meet us, Adam, if they haven't yet.
Yeah.
Um, we spend a lot of time going into corporate head, talking with C-suite level decision makers, and then all the way down to the floor for the booking agents and things like that. But that's really where we're having fun, is making sure that people are educated about the new expanding market space of STO and how they can leverage it. But there's a lot of buzz at any conference we go to, whether I'm there, whether some of our other team is there, whether it's in a booth or just walking around shaking hands and meeting people. Everybody has a need, and they just haven't found somebody that has the one-stop shop capacity like we do to help really fill that need for their customers. We hear a lot of people say they pass on the freight just because they're not confident they can find somebody to handle it like we can. And that's always disappointing for me at the beginning of the conversation.
Hey,
By
Josh
the end, we work
Gray.
together to see how we can help them out, right?
There it is. You know, when you think about that too, man, you guys got a lot of momentum. What would you say would be what's coming up next for Expedite All? Any new initiatives or partnerships that might open doors for independent carriers? Because this is what this show is about. It's about the independents.
Yeah, so a couple of different initiatives we're working on right now. So even within the niche that we're already in, there's another developing niche for refrigerated, temperature controlled STL. So we're actually working diligently to improve the number of partners we have that have temperature controlled units.
Mhm.
Because when you think of what options you have out there for temp control, it's refrigerated LTL, which is a little bit uncertain, or you're buying a full 53 footer for a skid worth of freight.
Yeah.
So we're huge in the growth um, vertical there. We're actually building out our network to increase the number of vehicles we have with temperature control. We have about 350 right now. Our goal is to get that to about 1,000. So I think that's a huge opportunity. And then obviously with the freight forwarders we work with, TSA qualified drivers are huge.
Mhm.
We've got about 250 right now. We've got another 792 drivers within our network that either have hazmat endorsements or a TWIC card. So we're working to help get those owner operators of those small fleets TSA qualified so that we can go back to market with roughly 1,200 is what we'd like from a TSA qualified standpoint. But those are two huge initiatives we're working on right now is TSA qualifications and the temperature control because we see there's a growing emerging market within the niche for both of those as well.
Just from our conversation today, it just really opened my eyes up as far as like you said, it's an emerging marketplace because you had partial, you had LTL, you had full truckload. But then, there's that niche segment that really, really, really makes sense. It makes so much sense. And, sometimes it's the obvious things that get overlooked when it comes down to market segmentation and coming up with a differentiation. So would you say that there's room for smaller fleets to specialize in this specific space and perhaps carve out a niche without competing with the folks such as yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about the NFL cities or the major metros, there's always going to be a consumer demand for STL in those markets. People are going to need somebody to fill that void. Now, option two, as we talked about earlier, we're always considering what kind of providers could become part of our network or join us. Again, we hold some pretty rigid standards because, we again want to go to market and do what we say we can do. But there's opportunities to partner with organizations like ours as we continue to grow our vehicle count and be a part of our options through the TMS platform we provide to our customers. So I definitely think there's room for everyone, and it's just going to continue to grow.
It's truly inspiring too, especially because your journey really just kind of just took off right after COVID. And we're like just like you mentioned, and it's really inspiring because at any point, no matter where you are, if you can solve a problem, and if you can create a solution for a problem, you'll always be able to scale your business. And that's what we talk about a lot on this particular podcast is providing that solution, coming up with that solution that obviously that can make a bigger impact. And one of the things that you brought to the table today that I thought that was just tremendous was like, hey, you know what? There was an LTL niche, but we made it better because there's an opportunity to improve the LTL side. So I thought that was just really, really cool, man. I really appreciated that. What's your message to the cargo van, the box truck driver that's just listening to this right now that's been burned by bad load boards or inconsistencies when it comes to work? Because you may have, and I'm not going to mention their names, but you've got those specialized load boards just for cargo vans and box trucks and might not be the best way to do business, and I'll just leave it at that. But what would you say to those cargo vans and those box truck owners, knowing what you know now?
I continue to say the market's expanding, so don't give up. There's a lot of opportunity out there. If you are looking to join our network, they can go to the website. They can submit an application. Our safety team will take a look at it, reach out, and if they meet the standards and can hold the criteria we expect of our drivers to provide that superior service product to our customers, we're going to continue to grow. Our forecast should put us at about 20,000 vehicles by approximately 2030. So we've got an aggressive growth strategy. But again, it's because of all the partners that we're finding in the 3PL, the freight forwarder, and the broker space that need this solution. So we can grow as quickly or as slowly as we want. Now, we'll always grow cautiously with
Yeah.
bringing in new providers from outside the organization just because we want that safe, secure environment within that closed loop network of drivers we provide. But it's out there and it's going to continue to grow. Again, when you think about that Amazon effect, when you think about the
Yeah.
leaner inventories people are keeping, when you think about everybody wants it now, but they don't want to waste, right?
Mhm.
Shipment sizes are shrinking. And then you throw in the third or the fourth criteria, Class A CDL drivers are getting tougher and tougher to find. So the market is shifting because of necessity, but also out of desired need for the way the space is changing on shipment sizes and lead times as well.
So, Mike, I'm gonna put you on the spot, and I'm gonna give you the keys to a brand new Sprinter 2500, and you have the platform is not a place that you can go right now. If you had to build an STL fleet from scratch, knowing what you know right now, what's the first thing you focus on? Equipment, lanes, relationships, compliance. Walk us through a step-by-step journey and what's the first things that you would focus
So the answer is yes to all of them. Every single one
on.
is just as important. You know that's a little bit of a trick question. I mean, you have to be compliant. You have to be safe. You have to have the quantities. Relationships relationships are everything, whether it's between the company and the driver or the company and the customer. All of those things are important. It'd be really tough for me to sit here and stack rank the ones you
Yeah.
threw out there because you hit all the highlights that came to my mind when you started to frame up that question. But I don't know that one is any more or less critical than the other. Now, if you put me on the spot and I had to, it's the relationship and the trust that you're building with both your providers, your carriers, your agents, your small fleets, as well as your partners, because we're bringing those two entities together. You've got a truck. Our partners on the flip side, between the 3PLs, brokers, freight forwarders, they have the customers. We're marrying those together to create that synchronization.
But you know, the thing is too, that a lot of people get into this space, and I'm gonna say this space, and I mean the smaller truck space because it's less expensive. It's a lot more inexpensive. A lot of people think that that's kind of like the gateway to the big boy, you know, the gateway into the semi trucks and things of that nature. But they don't realize that the costs that are associated are very similar when you really kind of come down to it. And then obviously the time that you have to put into it is about the same, if not more. And so when I think about like that space, and then you got to remember, like, man, during COVID, there was a lot of weird stuff happening. You had a lot of people buying up box trucks and thinking that, you know, obviously this was going to be the new wave. And then all of a sudden that they had to suffer the same demise as those folks that went in and bought semi trucks at the same time. And which makes it really, really tricky, and it makes it difficult for those to see down the road that, like, hey, STL is going to be the next big thing. What can you give as far as not even an insurance? And because I would dare to ask that, but what are some of those things that you can say, hey, yes, this is going to be another growing niche. We see it, we're banking on it, we're investing in it, we're putting almost 20,000 units in front of this in 2030. What gives you that confidence is really what I want you to portray to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking to somebody that's thinking about going out and either buying a 53-foot truck and trailer, or a smaller unit like the cargo vans, the box trucks and straight trucks, the obvious one you already mentioned, the initial upfront investment. There is a significant difference there, no doubt. But at the end of the day, I think you know the space is evolving. I can't say it enough. I mean, when you look at what the market, what the economy is doing, the lack of CDL qualified, that Amazon effect, all of those good
Yeah.
things, it is exploding. I mean, we wouldn't have a plan to get to 20,000 vehicles in the next 4.5 years if we didn't fully think that that's where the market is going.
Yeah.
Again, when you look at the year-over-year growth rates that we've had, the customers we've talked to that want to expand new verticals because it's something they've never dabbled into before. And when I talk about partners, I'm talking about partners that you can read on the top 100 list. So these aren't small brokerages, these aren't small 3PLs, small freight forwarders. They see where the evolution is going.
Mhm.
Again, some of it out of necessity because it's getting tougher and tougher for a class A CDL driver to, do what they do and the expenses that they have. I was watching one of your earlier podcasts is on, what it costs to buy a truck, what it costs to buy a
Mhm.
trailer, what it costs for, DEF, what it costs for fuel. You think about all those things. There's less of an investment, but there's no shortage of work.
That's right.
We find work for our drivers every single day. There's a wealth of opportunity, and there's more that we could win out there with our partners as we continue to expand. But at the end of the day, truly think that in the next 2, 3, 4 years, you're going to see much more of a shift than we've even seen in the last few years. And it's going to continue to push towards that immediate gratification or that just in time, where people are going to want those smaller shipment sizes, and we're going to need additional vehicles to cover them. So it's good business to be in if you're not in it right now.
And you know the crazy thing is, and I had to think about this when you said it at first. You was like, we want to get to 20,000 units by 2030. And it feels like 2030 is so far away, but it's only 4.5 years away. So we're already on the cusp of another decade, another opportunity to really like look at expansion. And realistically, when it comes down to the transportation market, I really feel like it is dying for a better solution. I feel like that going through COVID opened a lot of shippers' eyes because you remember during COVID, they were We had, containers coming across that were getting stuck out in the ocean, and we had a backlog of shipments. It was a supply chain nightmare around COVID time, and I really
Sure.
believe that during that if there was a better time to look for a better solution, I don't think that it would be a better time than now because you hear all of everybody's trying different things. You got automation. You got they're wanting to put driverless trucks out there. You're looking at all of these people are investing money to find a better supply chain solution. And then when you think about the LTL space, even when you see it on a box truck on the spot side, and I'm just gonna talk about spot. A lot of times they'll try to partial things together, right? And then it's not a dedicated truck. You might have to deal with, and they don't have the blankets, the straps, the bulkheads to provide that segregation of product. When you're talking about, hey, we're starting a completely different niche where you know what, you can take this one envelope and stick it in the back of this cargo van. It ain't touching nothing else. That's a niche because as a customer, they're going to pay, and just like with anybody else, you're going to pay a premium to have premium service. And if that premium service means that I can load a china cabinet onto the back of your 24-foot straight truck, and I know that hella high water that there's nothing else going to be around it, and it's going to get to my location without having a rug or another box swing into it during transit, then you're going to take that.
Yeah. And then you even think about the delays when you start parsing freight and putting two, three, four customers on the same truck. Delays happen, whether it be traffic, whether it be trying to get unloaded or loaded. You lose a little bit of control over your desired delivery date at that point as well. Again, those are all things that we can solve with these smaller vehicle solutions. And again, not knocking any other mode of transportation,
Sure.
they all have the right fit. LTO has its purpose. Full
Yeah.
truckload with those larger quantities has its purpose. Rail has its purpose. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just we're finding there's a much larger demand. People just haven't been able to solve the riddle, right? They didn't have an answer to the test. And we've been fortunate enough that we had built up that network through that consulting arm. So we had it. It was time, or the time was right post COVID when all the scary stuff was happening in the space with these smaller vehicles. Take it to market and say, hey, we can help you solve those problems for your customers and provide something safe, reliable, and once you book with Expedite All, you can book it and forget it, right? Move on, do something else. We'll take care of the transportation side and keep you posted.
The crazy thing about it though, and it's weird to even think about, and you just think about it for a second. It seems extremely weird that you've got a 2,500 Sprinter van with just an envelope and bubble wrap in it going from shipper to destination. Especially when you think about utilization, you think about being optimized efficiently. How efficient is that? But then you have to think completely different on the STO side, right?
Well, we don't like to share a lot of customer information, but I'll give you an example of one of our partners. They're shipping computer equipment that has sensitive information on it. We actually helped them create an SOP that not only documented with pictures, security tape, seals, rod locks, things like that, but also chain of custody forms. Imagine those type of things
Yeah.
in the wrong hands can get really ugly. But
Yeah.
you put it in an environment like ours, we help you create an SOP, allows you, your customer, to feel safe and secure that that freight's going to get picked up and it's going to get untouched until it's time to offload it delivery. Those are solutions you can solve with STL, and you can't solve with anything else unless you want to buy a full 53 footer. And if you have two, three, four pallets worth of computer equipment with that sensitive information, the last thing you want to do is have to pay for a 53 footer when you need three skid spots. Now, there's a number of case studies like that we could talk through, but it's all again about just talking with the customer and find out, what do you need? What do
Yeah.
your customers need? Maybe STL is not right for this customer, but it's perfect for that. And just helping them solve those problems like you talk. That's what transportation's all about. That's why we get out of bed every day, because it's a new problem, it's a new solution you're trying to come up with, a new answer to the test to help your customers make their supply chain more streamlined, to make their business and their customers happy, right? Their business function the way they want, and their customers happy, so they keep coming back. And that's really where we fit in. Let us take a look at everything. We love taking a look at data, say, hey, here's are the lanes that make sense. They're more economical with our solutions. Plus, you get that dedicated, faster ground service. Here's ones that aren't.
Yeah.
It's okay, and we're happy to point our customers and what makes sense, what doesn't. because again, we only want to do what we're good at. We don't want to try to fit a square peg in a round hole, but we enjoy those conversations, sitting down and working through the details to say, hey, here's where I think it fits better. And then again, with our relationships, we get brought on a lot of calls with our partners and their customers to walk through why this makes more sense. We talked about the packaging earlier. You can spend a lot of money in packaging to make sure that it can run reasonably through an LTL system that's going to have a lot of touches. Or you can save that money and invest somewhere else. Yes, your transportation costs on certain goods may go up compared to an LTL shipment, but when you can reduce the packaging spend, there's no service issues, there's no damage
Mhm.
problems. Customers happy, they keep coming back. You can reinvest and continue to grow another vertical by just trimming out that packaging waste. That makes sense, Adam?
Absolutely, absolutely. This has been it's just been an amazing eye opener, honestly, Mike. To because it's one of those things like you would never think about a sub segment within a sector that could potentially create such a viable solution for folks. Just like you said, there's a niche for everybody. You mentioned that customer with the computer sensitive equipment. You can't put that on a regular LTL shipment and move that around the country. There's no way you could do. Well, you could, but the expectations on that would be very, very loose, for a lack of a better term. So it's been really a pleasure, really kind of learning that space, learning about Expedite All, hearing your story and your journey coming from Yellow, and really kind of describing that and talking about what the next 4 or 5 years look like. If folks wanted to reach out to you, wanted to learn more about Expedite All, how would they do so? Kind of tell them how they can connect with the company.
Sure. We've got a few different ways. Obviously, we've got the social media sites. Feel free to reach out, ask for somebody to contact you. We'd be happy to sit down and talk about, what makes sense for you, what makes sense for your customers. We've got the website that you can submit a form, ask for an outreach, ask for a demo, ask for a discussion. We'd be happy to have one of our sales team reach out, tell people a little bit more about the technology, the network, how it works, what the ideal customer profiles you're looking for. And then again, we're happy to sit down and help teach and coach as well. We want people to understand what's out there and what they're really looking for, and what makes sense and what doesn't, right? Again, we don't want to do that square peg in
Yeah,
a round hole. So we enjoy spending time with our customers, even just teaching them about the space, how it works, um, and then what customers to look for, which customers freight types fit well, and helping educate them on new verticals.
that's right. That's right. Man, it's been awesome and truly a pleasure you joining us on this show today, Mike. And appreciate Mike for showing love to the part of the industry that most folks overlook because STL isn't small, it's strategic. And if you're running box trucks, vans, sprinters, now's the time to stop thinking like a gig worker and start thinking like a logistics pro. STL is growing fast, and the carriers who understand the freight, the tech, and the safety piece are going to lead the way. Salute to Mike for giving us the game, making sure you all look into Expedite All and everything that they've got going on over there because by 2030, they're about to go vertical. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of The Long Haul. I'm excited for you and your journey of Expedite All. And for all my small operators out there, and when I mean small in size, not small in vision and aspirations, but all those think differently, think, act, and lead differently. And Mike has been an example on how you can take that mindset and really carve out a niche that's for you. If you heard anything on this podcast that you enjoyed, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And if you heard anything on this podcast that really resonated to you, play it again. Make sure you digest it, make it digestible. Thanks again, Mike, for joining us today.
Adam, thank you and the long haul for having us as well. Really enjoyed our conversation today. I appreciate you having us on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody listening. And until the next episode of Long Haul, stay safe and stay profitable. Take care, everybody.